Can you tell me on Facebook if we are live and if we have sound? Moshe, can you hear any sound on Facebook? That would be very helpful if you could let me know. And just checking as well on Instagram. Okay, we should be live everywhere. Just want to know if you guys can just give me a shout and let me know whether or not you can hear me, if that works. We're going to start with hopefully with Facebook. Yes and yes. Okay, excellent. That's wonderful. So we're just about to start. We have about 1 more minute left. I just want to check all the that we are all systems go, and then Be'ezrat Hashem we'll get started. I really appreciate everyone's patience. I know it's not you don't come generally to hang out and be here for a sound check, but trying to manage it all is quite overwhelming. So Baruch Hashem, it looks like we've cracked the system as to how to get it running, but I do need your patience, if that's all right, for just 1 more minute. Okay. And now IG stories, just so I can see if it's working on Instagram. I don't know if someone can check Instagram and tell me if we are live. Jessica, can you let me know if we can launch on Instagram, if that's all right? As soon as you let me know, then I can start. Let's try that one more time. Copy. Caster says we are live, but I might be wrong. Save. Okay. Copy to your clipboard. And I think we should be good to go. Okay. Okay, let's get started. So each week we are going through another element of this idea of the pathway to greatness, and so much of. Hey everyone. Okay, so each week we're attempting to go through some version of the pathway to greatness to allow us to understand what it is that a person needs to do if they are searching, if they are trying, if they're doing their best to attempt, at the very least, to attempt to be great, to be the best version that they can be of themselves. And what we've explained in this specific set of classes is that there's seemingly two separate elements that describe this pathway. Okay, one element which describes the pathway to greatness is what a person needs in their physical self, in what they're doing. But an entirely other world is this internal self, the understanding of self, and self-awareness, and we've spoken a lot about that. So much is wrapped up in that world, and that journey on the inside of a person's world is the, so to speak, the recurring theme seen from different angles, which creates a pathway for a person to experience tremendous greatness. So this week's class was dedicated in honor of Rabbi Shlomo Farhi, and Le'ilui Nishmat Rachel Bat Sophie Shefie, Le'ilui Nishmat Yitzchak Ben Lucy, Rabbi David Ben Rivka, for the Refuah Shlema of Rose Razel Bat Chava, Marco Mordechai Ben Jamile, Yaakov Ben Chaviva, and Rabbi Yoshua Yosef Pinto Ben Zari, by Anonymous. Okay, so let's, if we can, let's dig in. All right. So I want to just start by continuing with our train of thought, if you will, from where we've left off on past weeks. Now, the Chovata Levavot writes an unbelievable line. He writes that there was a wise man who once said, I have studied my actions for clarity. I've studied my actions for over 25 years. Now, there was this great study that was done a little while ago, that if a person wants to become an expert in any one given realm or in any one given area, then they need to do what's called the 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours allows a person, doesn't make a difference if it's something which is related to music, or if it's something which relates to sports, but in any realm, if you spend 10,000 hours on that project, you will come to know it with a level of proficiency that you will be able to master that thing. So whether it's playing guitar, or it's understanding how to read people's body language, or it's becoming an expert in communication or in relationships. So 10,000 hours is a number that's given, repeatedly. And yet the Chovat HaLevavot says that this person, this wise man said, that I studied in order to have clarity in myself. I studied myself for 25 years. So to study something external takes 10,000 hours, but to study yourself takes 25 years? Could there be such a thing? And the answer, I think, although intuitively it sounds like the guy is overdoing it a little bit, in actual fact, I think every one of us will agree that that's 100% true. And we were talking about this just now, my brother and I. You find people that get to a certain age and they just have achieved some level of comfort in their own skin. You meet people like that, they're not bothered at all what anyone thinks or says. And that to a certain degree comes with age. It comes with a certain amount of maturity, okay? So you think, does it take 25 years? Well, ask yourself that question. You're a thinking human being from the time you're bar mitzvah, 25 years, 30, you're 35, 36, 37. You don't mature after that. You don't have a deeper sense of understanding of self as you go on. That absolutely you do, which means that it can take someone many, 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 many years to have a clear and accurate picture of themselves. Now, in life, every one of us, we all recognize this truth to be self-evident, right? That when we're choosing a direction, whether it's in business or in a relationship or with children or with some passion project, whatever it might be, the process or the way forward in greatness is always related to a person's evaluations that they are making of themselves. If we are not evaluating ourselves, we don't know if we are great. We don't know if we could be greater. So there's two types of self-evaluations that always, 100% of the time, consistently will fail. Okay? So you want to know, am I being a good person? Am I, do I have a grip on my own desires, on my own, anger? Do I have a grip on it? Am I getting better at this? Am I becoming a more patient person? So how do you evaluate yourself? So there's two forms of self-evaluation that constantly fail. And the failure of this evaluation, sometimes it just stops you from growing. But actually, sometimes what it can do is actually much more frightening. It can actually take you backwards. So let's talk about these two types of evaluations that fail. One type of self-evaluation that fails. So, and again, this applies to everybody from any background, however religious or non-religious they are. This applies to everyone equally, all right? I'm looking at myself. I'm trying to understand, am I doing a good job at work? Okay, so you're evaluating yourself. When your boss evaluates you, or where you have HR evaluate you, a lot of times actually that's not an accurate picture. So let me give you an example. HR might say, you were hired in this job, to be a rabbi. Why are you not getting this metric done on time? So you know what I might answer to someone who's trying to look at my performance? I might say, well, do you know that I'm also designing flyers? Do you know that I'm also responsible for helping to raise funds for the shul? Do you know that? No. So if you don't know that, you can't actually make an accurate self-evaluation of the person. So to whom does it fall to decide whether or not you are doing well or you are doing badly, or you could be doing better in religion, in relationships, in business, in goals, in dreams? Who decides that? You decide that. So it's incredibly important to recognize that the system by which we use to self-evaluate ourselves, if it's a faulty system, it in and of itself is enough to stop us, A, from growing, but sometimes actually takes us backwards. So reason number one, is when a person fails to grasp the situation. So let me explain what that looks like, okay? You have a person who has a marriage that's failing. Now, why are they evaluating themselves in this marriage or their marriage? Why are they evaluating that the marriage is failing? Or why would they be evaluating their marriage as a resounding success? Most often, it's because the person has some definition of the word marriage, or some definition of the word job, or some definition of the word perfection, and judged against their understanding of the situation, that will be how they self-evaluate. But a lot of times, they're way off the mark. And the problem lies not in the fact that they don't know how to get better, not in the fact that they're not hardworking enough, but just that they don't know that they need to. So you have someone who comes into my office and will tell me, Rabbi, I don't know I can never make my wife happy. I buy her whatever she wants. We go on the nicest vacation. She's never happy. What will quite often a wife in that situation say? She'll say, it's not about the vacations. I never complained he doesn't take me nice vacations. He made the nicest vacations. I never complained about my ring. It's the nicest ring. But those are things that are extras. The things that I need, he's not providing. So as an example, I need someone to help me deal with the kids. So vacation doesn't answer the fact that constantly I, as the mother, am dealing with the children and I need his help. Because sometimes the kids just won't listen to me. I had a hard time understanding that as a father and as a husband. Sometimes my wife will say, I can't get the kid to go and I'll come in, I'll say, go to sleep. The kid goes to sleep. I'm like, why did I need to, I was in the middle of doing this bit of work. I needed to come do that. And you know what my wife eventually helped me understand? Yes, she needed me to come in, dad, low voice, and say, go upstairs right now. And the kid's like, and then they go upstairs. Okay? So she needed that. She needed that help. The vacation here and there is a very nice thing. So the guy might feel, I am providing everything that I need to provide in order to have a great marriage. But actually, he's misunderstanding the situation. A boss might tell his worker, I need you to do this, this, and this. But actually, the boss himself doesn't realize what he needs from a worker. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced this before. The boss might need the worker not to agree with him, but to disagree with him. But he's not going to tell the worker that he needs them to disagree with him because he wants people to agree with him. So what winds up happening in that situation? The boss doesn't get the job done. Eventually he turns around and he says, how come I don't have any help in this place? But he misunderstood what the situation was. He erred in his self-evaluation. He thought himself as a boss a great manager when he's a terrible manager. He thought himself as a boss someone who's very creative, when meanwhile he's not creative at all. He happens to be an unbelievable worker bee, but he's not the queen bee. Someone else should have had that job. And sometimes the wrong person in the right job is a disaster. So the idea of self-evaluation is number one. We have to actually understand, right, the correct analysis of the situation that we are in. Someone who is in a relationship with a friend where one of them broke the other's trust, and he's coming, he says, I don't understand what's going on, Rabbi. We've been best friends since we were kids. The guy won't talk to me. I said, okay, did you hurt his feelings? He says, yeah, I hurt his feelings. I said, did you apologize? He says, yeah, I apologized. What does the guy want from my life? Anyway, I go to the other guy. I was like, the guy apologized. People make mistakes. You're going to throw out 20 years of friendship? He looks at me. He says, Rabbi, did he tell you he still owes me $3.2 million? Now, either the first guy is a liar, but what does he gain from coming to me to fix the relationship only to not tell me the crucial fact that the other guy is going to immediately tell me the second I go speak to him? He wanted me to speak to him, and he cut that piece of information out. You know why? Not because he's a liar. Not because he's a liar. Because the second condition of evaluation was missing. And that is that there are times when we actually know all the information that we need, but the information that is correct is too difficult for us to admit as the problem. I want to share with you a fascinating case study in the world of psychology. Rabbi Twersky wrote an unbelievable idea. He says, you sometimes find that there are children who have, who have a really tough time making friends. Some of your kids might be the type of kid, they walk in, everybody's their best friend. Everybody wants to be friends with them. Everyone wants to come to their birthday party. And then you have that other kid that, the teacher has to tell all the kids, everyone should go to the birthday party so no one should feel like anyone else had more friends, right? You have some kids built like this, some kids like that. Some kids are social animals. Some kids are, unfortunately, social ants, okay? So, in an example, like that. So you have a kid, they have a really tough time making friends. And finally they make a friend. And then, you come to the kid, they've been excited all this time that they're going to have a sleepover finally with this one friend that they have. And then you say to them, okay, you're getting ready, excited, you're having the sleepover this week. Kid says, I don't want them to come anymore. I told them no, I told them they're not coming. Why? Let me show them. I'm sure I could speak to them. No, Rabbi, it's probably no, I don't want it. No, Abba, I don't want it. No, Mommy, I don't want. What happened? You dig a little deeper and you find out that this kid who has such a hard time making friends actually picked a fight, yelled at, screamed at, humiliated this other kid, and now the other kid doesn't want to come anymore. And you think to yourself, why in the world would someone who has such a hard time making friends, why would they chase their friends away? And there are multiple understandings in the world of psychology to help us understand why kids with low self-esteem or people with low self-esteem push the people that do love them away. You have such a hard time making friends. You finally made a friend. Why would you? You finally found someone who likes you. Why are you sabotaging your own dating? Why would you do that? Why would you break up with, you finally found someone that you liked and that likes you. Why would you do that? And there are a couple of different reasons, but I want to share with you the one that really struck me deep. He writes that the reason why people sabotage relationships, even though they have such a difficult time making friends, trusting people, letting people in, was because what he said was, if I drive you away, if I made fun of you, if I betrayed your trust, if I didn't treat you nicely, and I chased you away, I could deal with the fact that I lost a friend because I did the wrong thing. But if I didn't do the wrong thing, and then the friend left me, then the problem is not that I did something wrong. The problem is that I have no self-value. So I'd rather beat the person to the punch, chase them away because in my brain I'm so nervous to lose the person, and to the way that that will make me feel about myself, how worthless that will make me feel. So I'll push you away before you get a chance to push me away, even though you didn't have any intention of doing so. How sad. How sad is that? But again, it helps us understand this second idea of nigiut, which means on the first level is to self-evaluate, you have to be honest. You have to understand, what are my capabilities? What was the job? What did I need to do? And what did I have to bring to the table to be able to get the job done? Now, assign your own values to that. So if it's a marriage, how loving am I? How accepting am I? How helpful am I? How hardworking am I on the relationship? Because every relationship needs hard work. You need to be engaged. So those are my tools. This is the job. The job is to work hard, right? To make sure that the relationship is healthy, that it's full of trust and loyalty and affection and acceptance and mutually beneficial goals, etc., etc. You're heading in the right direction. Your header is in the same place. You know where the other person is. One element is about being, seeing the situation as it is. The second element is ensuring Not just that you have an accurate picture, but that you're not coloring the picture a certain way because that's how you want it to seem. That's what the idea of nigiyut means. The Talmud tells us that there was once a rabbi. There was once a rabbi, it's not in the Gemara. There was once a rabbi who had a work. This bit is in the Gemara, actually. Sorry. One bit is in the Gemara. There was once a rabbi who had a worker, and the worker brought him his fruits, and he brought him his fruits on time, and this was his job. It was the worker's job to do it for him. There was a court case. The rabbi recused himself from the court case because he says, I got benefit from this guy. Fascinating. You're paying him. The rabbi said, yeah, but maybe my warm feelings towards him because he actually got me the profit means that I'm going to treat him favorably in the court case. There was a case of a rabbi who someone came to him before a court case. He was walking in, the judge, he had a feather on his jacket. The guy, one of the defendants, brushed the feather off his jacket. He says, I'm sorry, I can no longer judge the case. Because he brushed the feather off his jacket? Really? And the answer is that human beings are so complex in the way we show favor, the way we feel towards people who do good things for us. It's so complex that actually an accurate portrayal and an understanding of oneself is that I decide where I'm going to come down on a given case based largely on things that I feel I benefited from you. Even though, by the way, I'm an honest person, even though I'm a judge, I'm very well learned, unbelievable. So these two things will govern the way we see the world that we are in. So if, as an example, I feel that this marriage is going to take a tremendous amount of work on my part, sometimes what I'll say is that the marriage is broken, even though it's not. Because to admit that the marriage is able to be saved is to admit that I have a lot of painful work to do. So what will I come and say? I'll say it's broken already. I have a job and I'm fighting with my boss over there's only this much of a bridge that we need to cross in order to get the contract done. But I know that that means that I'm going to need to admit that I'm not as good a worker as I said I was. It doesn't matter. The money doesn't even make a difference. But that admission, saying that I don't deserve when I know that the other guy got the same raise I'm asking for, I could have worked forever at the same amount. But now that they got the raise and I'm not getting it, I'd rather quit than admit to myself that I'm an inferior worker to the person sitting in the cubicle next to me. Because my brain can't compute that. I can't handle that. So when we are evaluating ourselves, it becomes incredibly important to evaluate the evaluations. Now, this is an unbelievable trick. It's so important. It actually makes all the difference between a good father, mother, sister, brother, worker, human being, is if you are capable of stepping outside of the evaluation process and judging the evaluation process. So let me give you a simple example of how something like this could work. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I don't know what just happened to Zoom. Hopefully it should pop back on in 1 sec. All right. I always found it hilariously ironic. Okay, did you get me back? Can everybody hear on Zoom? Yeah? Ronnie, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. No, I am on mute. Okay, can you hear and see me now? Yes. Okay, carrying on. So, I don't actually know what happened. That was just a Zoom crash in middle of nowhere. All right. So, this incredible tool, the idea to evaluate the evaluations. So, I used to work in England for an organization called Esh HaTorah. Okay, and at the time there's an organization, a parent organization, and it's called Olami. Olami is a worldwide organization which works heavily in trying to engage young Jews in their Jewish heritage. So you have some kid grows up in a tiny village, God knows where, never went to Jewish school, never went anything. So you know what? Take him to Israel, expose him to some really inspiring rabbis, have him meet some other Jewish kids on a birthright type trip, etc., etc. And in many, many, many cases, for a child like that, the difference between having a Jewish future or not having one at all can be the fact that someone actually took the time to see whether or not this kid would join the trip. Okay? Now, an organization like that, like every other organization, has metrics. They want to know, are the people getting involved? Are they showing up at Shabbat tables? You say you're taking these kids and inspiring them. Well, are they inspired? Now, what's fascinating is that I want you to imagine as an example that you have this organization called Olami, and Olami says that the metrics for success are X. Now, I, as a rabbi, might feel that the metrics for success are Y. By my evaluation, I've done an amazing job. You know why? Because I got this kid to go to Israel. And you know what? I love Israel. I'm so crazy about Israel that if a kid went to Israel and has a positive connection with the land of Israel, I feel we've had a success. That's how Michael Steinhardt feels. He's the one who sponsored Birthright tremendously, pushed the agenda all the way. Amazing success. The kid is excited about Israel. Olami says, actually, we want them to be excited about Judaism. It's not enough that they want to go to Tel Aviv and hang out on the beach, when they come back. That's not enough of a development. That's not enough of a success. So you have two different metrics. One will tell you you are an abject failure. One will tell you you are an unmitigated success. You see, this process, therefore, of figuring out what exactly is my evaluation, what am I looking to achieve? What is it? Now, the Alter gave an unbelievable example for this, and he said as follows. Listen to this. He said, in all things in the world, there are There are different measures by which a person is capable of measuring something. So, as an example, if you were to measure, giant concrete blocks, how would you measure that? You can't put that on a bathroom scale. So what do? Sometimes they'll take a boat or they'll put something, marked. They'll put it in the water and they have marks on the side of the boat or the raft and how deep it goes in the water. That tells you how heavy the object is. Okay? Let's say you're trying to measure a diamond. You think you could put a diamond on the boat? Not going to work, right? It's too small. You're trying to measure something very fine. It's very valuable. That's not the method by which you would measure something. How about if you're trying to measure, so where do you measure a diamond? You have these super sensitive scales. Imagine you took a concrete block and put it on that scale. It would crush the scale completely and you would have no idea how heavy that block was. So everything in life is like that. You want to measure an earthquake? You go to the Richter scale. They'll tell you exactly. But if you took something that was of monumental importance in your life and tried to measure it on the Richter scale, the Richter scale only measures things which are of literally earth-shattering importance, right? Literally splits the ocean, the Earth's crust open. There's a massive earthquake. Everything is shaking. That's what gets, attention if you're using the Richter scale. So the challenge quite often is in misunderstanding which scale to use. So let's say, as an example, you use the scale of a rasha. So I want to know if I'm a good Jew, okay? Well, all people say this to me, Rabbi, I'm a pretty good Jew. Most of the people that I know, they do this, or they go there, or they do that. But that's actually not an accurate way of measuring yourself. Why? Because if you're already better than that, so the complacency of staying in that place doesn't behoove you. It doesn't fit you. So you need to be able to say, you know what, once upon a time, a good way of measuring my success was to measure me against a really good friend of mine who came from the same school, the same block, the same whatever. But you know what, time went on. You married a husband or a wife that was much more developed, much more, religious, much more connected. You went to a synagogue that had a rabbi. You started really liking classes. Could you imagine if in anything else you would do this? You would say, you know what? I've now gone to university. I have a PhD in economics. I don't want to take an exam for the PhD. I don't want to submit my PhD, my thesis. I don't want to do that. My doctorate. I don't want to do that. I'm going to measure my understanding of economics against somebody I used to go to school with in ninth grade. It doesn't make sense for you anymore. I'm not saying you rub that into the other person's face, but the methods we use to measure ourselves need to evolve. So you know what? You're now better. Judged by the you of last year, you need to get better than that. Judged by the you of this year, hopefully by next year, this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be evolving in this way, okay? Some people are wondering, should I go to work on Shabbat, okay? Some people already passed that. They've closed their store. Now they don't drive on Shabbat. Some people, it's just about not having a party on Shabbat. Some people not on their phone. You see, some people less judgmental. Some people are trying, so wherever you are to try and figure out the method by which I'm going to measure my success. And therefore, so you know what? It's not all or nothing. You put a diamond on the boat, it doesn't register. So what? Now you failed? Now imagine, if you think I need to have the patience of a saint, then you don't have that patience. You think I'm a miserable failure. That's ridiculous. Don't measure yourself on a scale too big. Don't measure yourself on a scale too small. We need a Goldilocks scale. Something which was made only by you, only for you. Okay? That is how a person evaluates themselves. So if I am a terrible husband, what tiny incremental level of growth can I measure myself for if I'm trying to be better? Okay? Now, when you know the challenge, when you understand, therefore, this is my situation. I know that my marriage is great, medium, terrible. I need to put in a lot of effort, a little bit of effort, an extra smile, Once you have an accurate read on your situation and an accurate read on yourself, then you're ready actually to grow in the most beautiful of ways. So I want to share with you a very deep idea in Judaism. In Judaism, there's an expression called for knowledge. What is the word that we use in order to describe knowledge? Okay? The word in Hebrew for knowledge is da'at. Okay? Da'at. A person has an obligation, v'yadata hayom, and you shall know today. So knowledge is da'at. Okay? Now, there's a lot of things we talked about now about having an accurate understanding of the situations we're in and of our capabilities and what we can bring to the situation. But there's a really funny thing about knowledge, because what does it mean to know? Rabbi Per relates that there was a Holocaust educator in his neighborhood whose name was Dr. Katz. And when he found out that the rabbi was traveling to Toronto, so he said to him, listen, there's a guy out there I really want you to meet. His name, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's Czeslaw Mordowitz. He's someone who was one of the very few people who managed to escape from Auschwitz. He's still alive, and he has a fascinating story to tell. See if you have a chance to go and hear it from him. What a beautiful opportunity. The guy says, all right, I'm with you 100%. You got it. I'm going. He goes to visit the man, and he says, sir, this Dr. Katz introduced us, made this appointment. I'm so excited to hear. The guy says, what do you want to know? Classic. What do you want to know? I'm not going to tell you stories. What do you want to know? So he's asking him questions, and slowly but surely the story comes out. And then he asks him a fascinating and a piercing question. At the time, in the news, it was all over the place that there was a tremendous scandal that the Pope had known what was going on during the Holocaust and had not intervened. So he said, did the church know? You're someone who lived through it. You are someone who escaped. Did the church know what was going on? Yes or no? And the man said, the question that I just asked you. What does it mean to know? And he launched into the following story. He said, when I escaped from Auschwitz, he says, the first place I wanted to go was back to Transylvania, to where I came from. I wanted to warn the people, to let them know exactly what was going on. People should fight. They shouldn't get on the trains. They shouldn't agree to go on a march, because ultimately they were coming directly to their deaths. So I wanted to let everybody know. I managed to get all the way back to this place, to this town in Transylvania. And a meeting was arranged between me and Rav Michael Ber Weissmandel. Genius of a man. He hears my story. He's shaken to the core. He says, look, I have a priest that I am friendly with. I have a good relationship with. He's the papal representative in Budapest from the Vatican, sent here to be the representative of the church. Let's go and speak to him. Maybe he can actually feed the information up the pipeline to the Pope, and the Pope can come out with a statement and say that the killing of Jews has to stop. Remember, a lot of these countries were staunchly, Christian. All right? The Pope would say something, it would carry a lot of weight. They arranged the meeting. This man is now sneaking through Hungary, through Budapest, to go have this meeting with the priest. If they catch him again on enemy territory, they're going to send him back, and probably this time it won't escape. He gets all the way in with the rabbi. They're hiding, they're wearing different clothes, different identities. They get in there, and the priest says, all right, what do you have to say? What do you have to say for yourself? For 2 hours, he's telling him horror story after horror story about the death and about the starvation and about the disease and about the beatings and about the forced labor, and on and on and on and on, and the separation and the kids and each time the priest is sitting there and he's nodding his head, listening, looking very concerned, putting out a nice oi, every once in a while, a nice polite, acknowledgement of how difficult that must be. But this guy, Czeslaw, says, I noticed, he says to the rabbi, I noticed that I wasn't getting through to him. So I said to him, do you know how many Poles I saw from the army in their uniforms that were taken and nailed? They were nailed to crates and then burned alive. The guy goes, he goes white. Czeslaw now knew exactly what he needed to do to make the priest understand. He leans across the desk and he says, do you know how many nuns and how many priests I saw in their garb, wearing the collar, nuns wearing their clothes, that I saw being pushed into flaming furnaces, burned alive? The priest shrieks and straight away faints on the ground. Remember, there's 2 Jews in hiding in this meeting. No one's allowed to know that they're there. They're even afraid to call someone to help the priest. So they're slapping his face, putting water on him until finally he wakes up. And now their mission accomplished, they leave. This man gets the word up to the Pope, and shortly after, an announcement came out from the Vatican saying that the killings that's going on need to stop. At the time, they estimated that over 200,000 people who would have been deported were not deported because of that meeting. Fascinating. Now, he's telling them all about the Jewish people burning. No reaction. What, now because he said there was a Pole that was being burned? Now that he said because it was a priest that was being burned? What, he cared less about Jews than about priests? The answer obviously is yes. But beyond that, the point was, for 2 hours, he had given this man knowledge. He knew. But as Czeslaw said, what does it mean to know? The second it was a Pole, it was a priest in my clothes, then it wasn't that it was happening to somebody. It was happening to me. So real knowledge is not when the ideas are in your head. Real knowledge is not when I tell you facts and you've heard them. Because how much do we know that we then promptly choose to ignore? Like, There's lots of people who knew for a very long time that smoking causes cancer. They still smoked. Lots of people who knew that if you don't pay attention and keep your relationship fresh, that your marriage is going to fall apart. They didn't want that to happen. Marriages that fall apart. Lots of people know that if you live beyond your means, you know that you're going to be broke eventually. That's literally what the words mean. Living beyond your means. You're going to be broke. Yet people still splurge. Why? Because they know it. But what does it mean to know? It's fascinating that the word dat or da in the Torah doesn't only mean to know, it also means to know in the highest form of a relationship. Vayeda Adam et ishto, and Adam knew his wife. And that's referring to intimacy, to the connection that there was between a man and wife. So the truest form of knowledge is knowledge that one has a deep relationship with. What's fascinating to me is that the word itself, da'at, in Hebrew, is the same letters that spell the word edut, which means to give testimony. So when you say you know something, that's very different than going in front of a jury and saying, this is what I saw. And the cross-examination happens and the guy's trying to shake you and you're like, sticking to your story. There's a certainty that needs to be there for knowledge to make us change, to make us do something that is different. That's what it means to know something. So the priests could hear all about the fact that people are dying. It's somewhere else. It's hard to believe. No one could really do this. How could such a thing happen? And you know what? If we stand up against the Nazis, what are they going to do to us? So number one, it's not understanding the situation. Number two, it's having a distinct fear and maybe even justified fear of having that understanding and what that means for me after I know something so clearly, so profoundly that I can't be the same because of what I know. All right? So, if this is true, and the idea is that a person can know many things in their life and not change from them. So what point is there to learn it all? Or if you're an educator, a rabbi, a teacher, a role model, if you're a father or mother and you want to teach your children right from wrong, so if you can teach them things and they'll have a knowledge of it, but that knowledge won't penetrate their actions, deeds, and lifestyle, so why are we even bothering to teach? Why are we even bothering to give over knowledge if knowledge can actually be something that doesn't really get through or penetrate? And the answer is very, very beautiful, all right? The difference between knowledge that gets through and knowledge that doesn't. Talking to your kids about the dangers of drugs or alcohol, you could throw all the stats at them, but somehow the kid is not shaken. I'm seeing it now as well with Corona. People who are just sick and tired. So you know what? You tell them, this is what it is. It's very dangerous. You have to be careful. The person's like, Hajj. How is Hajj an answer to the statistics that people are getting ill? You understand? There's a lack of connection, of relationship between me and the knowledge that I have. To the point that what I know is not actually informing my actions. So the answer is actually a beautiful, beautiful idea. Okay? It can actually be described as the macro-micro phenomenon. That's what I like to call it. Macro is when you look at something from here and you see the entire picture, okay? Micro is when you look at something from here and you see, if there's a little bit of red lines in the person's eye. Micro is up close, macro is very far away, very wide lens. And the reason why I'm talking to you about macro and micro is because it's not just that there are two ways to look at life. It's that often we are thinking that micro is macro and macro is micro. Let me explain. On May 11th, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a young man, 19 years old, whose name is Jose Nunez Romanes. Okay? He walks up to a bank. He needs to, make a withdrawal. And he sees a plastic bag. He opens the plastic bag, and in the bag are 50s and hundreds, just stuffed into this plastic bag. How much money was in the bag that this 19-year-old kid in New Mexico found? $135,000. Go look it up in the New York Times, you'll see the story. He takes the money, more money he's ever seen in his life, and he brings it right back to Wells Fargo, to the bank, and tells them someone has left their money here. He returns every single dollar. He doesn't grab one stack, doesn't take the whole thing, go back home, buy himself something, or put it in a bank account. He returns every last cent of it. Afterwards, he was surprised to find out that the city had thrown an event in order to honor him for his honesty. 50 people turn up there, they give him a medal, they give him an award of $500, and the kid says, it never passed through my mind to keep any of it. My parents always taught me to work for my own. Okay? Stolen money would never last you anyway. The officer in charge of the case, his name was Officer Drobik, said, the family was very humble. It was amazing to watch them. There's a greater good there. They weren't blown away by Jose's actions, but everyone else was. I want you to understand that. That means in this boy's house, in this boy's family, the way that they understood dealing with someone else's money when it was micro was that micro was macro. Let me explain what that means. We talked just before about large scales and small scales, about measuring huge things and measuring small things. Oftentimes, we take this very tiny, sharp measurement of incredibly huge actions and we think, wow, these are big things. It's not a big deal that the guy gave back $135,000. You know why? Because no one in his family was surprised. The kid didn't even have a thought of taking it for himself. It didn't even cross his mind. How did that happen? How did that happen? The answer is very simple. The answer is that when Jose went to the pizza shop with his friend and he needed $1 for a slice and a soda and he forgot his money at home and the other kid spotted him $1.10 because of the tax or whatever it was. And then when he got back to the car or got back to the house and gave him $1, you know what Jose did back home? He said, oh, I forgot the other 10 cents. He returned 10 cents. I need you to hear this. He returned 10 cents 1,000 times. When a family thinks that tiny things are huge, then great acts actually become very small. Doesn't surprise them even that they did. When you think to yourself, you know what? I told someone a story and I said the details a little bit wrong. Now I'm going to go back and straighten out the story. But what difference does it make? They don't care. It's not a relevant part of the story. Yeah, but you lied. It's not about them. It's about you telling the truth. When you tell the truth on something that's irrelevant, that's easy, that's simple, that's small, that micro, that's the fight. That's the big deal. That's the big measurement. Because you know what happens when you do that a bunch of times? When it comes to a big lie, when it comes to something where you need to tell the truth, where something huge is at stake, it won't be difficult to tell the truth, even though that might change your life forever. Because you already fought the battle of being an honest person. The battle of recognizing that money that is stolen is not yours. And money that comes to you the wrong way will not give any sort of beracha. That's the big fight, not here. So what we're learning here is actually that we've got the micro and the macro backwards. We've got the big deal and the tiny deal exactly upside down. But it takes a lot of times an effort from all of us to be able to understand that it is those things that are the finest things that we can produce as human beings. There was an elderly woman, a woman who was not elderly, but she had all the kids out of the house. In fact, her husband already had passed away. So she was a little older and she had a lot of free time on her hands. And she had the most beautiful mitzvah. You know what her mitzvah was? Anytime she read on her phone or in the bulletin that there was an avel, that someone passed away, she would go directly to the house, knock on the door and tell them, I'm here to clean. Who's thinking about cleaning their house when someone just passed away? Who's thinking about doing the laundry? Who's thinking about making sure, before the people get home, that there'll be food for them in the fridge for later? I have time. It's a small thing. You look at it, you're like, okay, what's the big deal? All right, she helped out a little bit. But think about what that was like for them. The genius here, the greatness of this, is that she thought of something that a lot of people don't actually think about. All right? I'll give you one more example. One more tiny example of something tiny, which is actually huge because of the impact that it makes. You know, when people are going through a very difficult time, the tiniest compliment, the tiniest, word of encouragement, the tiniest loan, the tiniest, kindness in that time for them is enormous. And why is that? Because when we think about kindness, a lot of times we are focused on what it is that we are doing, and that's how we define the kindness. So as an example, if I, during Corona, am making food to deliver to people, okay, if that's what I do, I deliver food to people, that's my job, my mission, my tzedakah mission. I cut up sandwiches, I give them out to everybody, that's how I do. If that's how I do it, that's how I do my tzedakah. So I think my tzedakah is making sandwiches, but that's not what it is. For an old person that's stuck inside by themselves that can't go out, the tzedakah and the kindness is that people in the world remember I'm alive. People in the world value me. People in the world care whether I'm okay. So quite often, in a path to greatness, the most important thing is to recognize how important the job we are doing is. To understand, to give it the proper value. And when we do that, Rabotai, when we achieve those things, you and I together, suddenly we are doing incredible things. Someone who's climbing a mountain, the difference between getting to the top and having to quit early might be as small as wearing comfortable shoes. It might be as small as having a jacket that's a little bit thicker so it's warm enough to keep me warm. It's a tiny thing, but that little tiny thing that I'm doing actually makes a huge difference over the long term. Micro, macro. May God bless us with the honesty to be able to see ourselves as we are. May God bless us to see the situations as they are. May God bless us to be able to recognize what is my contribution towards growth in this moment. And when we do, then we are well on our way to achieving unbelievable things over time, to the point that the things that we do astonish people. They want to give us awards. And for us, it's just the most obvious thing in the world. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week. Be'ezrat Hashem. Allah ma'ak, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you. We have lots of programs on. Make sure you check the WhatsApp group to be able to ensure you're getting all the information. Bye.